ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। So in the last class, we were studying that section of the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where we find that Arjuna is raising a doubt. What's the doubt? That the highest attainment of yoga is something really fulfilling. That you attain this permanent tranquility, peace, joy in life. And at the same time, you have samadarshitva, all the distinctions in our vision. As per our relations are concerned, the hierarchy in our love, all those things starts falling off. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say very nicely, the difference between Maya and Daya. Just to feel associated with our own kith and kin, with our blood relationship, that's what is Maya. Shorbo Bhute Prem. When that same love transcends the biological boundary, it's no more just limited to the biological boundary. As a human being, we have that capacity to feel love for the kith and kin. That is not a speciality. Even the animals, all the creatures feel love for their young ones, for their own near and dear ones, for the herd. These things we find even in the animals. You'll find that the herds of cattle, they're always together. They form a group. From that the word herd mentality has come. So to feel the love for within that herd, within the family, within just your kith and kin, that's not the uniqueness of human being. The human being can dive deep into the spiritual dimension of his existence and come out from it to find that the same divine essence is permeating the entire creation. And that's how he transcends his biological limitations and he can feel the love for all, as was exemplified in the life of Holy Mother. We find that the same motherly love as the mother feels for the child, the same motherly love was extended to as if to the entire world, to all the creation, not only human beings, even the animals, the pets, everywhere we find that same motherly love is extended. It's not just as a matter of duty. It was from the bottom of her heart. She used to feel that empathetic belonging for all the creatures of this world. So that's the thing which happens when we go to that deep spiritual realization, and from that when we come back. But that's something is very difficult to attain. It's not something very easy. And that's why Arjuna, as if on behalf of the entire humankind, has put that question, the doubt to Sri Krishna, that Sankshaya. What's that? That if I don't attain, now to pursue this path, we have to renounce our so-called, the worldly way of existence. And we have to get established in spirituality. Now if I have renounced this world, but at the same time I couldn't attain the highest realm of the spiritual dimension of my existence, then what's my destiny? Am I lost? Neither have attained worldly gains, nor I have attained spiritual perfection. As that example he was giving, just like a scattered cloud, you get lost. There is no utility of your life as such. So that's the doubt which Arjuna placed before Krishna. And in reply we find the assurance, that doubt when he was placing, one remarkable thing Arjuna said, that it is only you who can dispel my ignorance, my doubt, my delusion. I am fully resigned to you. This is a very important thing. In life, the moment we can fully resign to the divine, know it for certain, the divine help is bound to come. Spirituality is not something attaining positive. We are already that. We are already in essence this spiritual. But why we don't realize it? Because we are holding onto the ignorance. Just with that example which we give, to fall to the ground when you are holding to the branch of a tree, you have climbed a tree and you are holding to the branch of a tree, to fall, no effort is required. You release the hold, the gravitation pulls you down. No effort is required. Similarly, in spiritual life, the grace is as if in the upward direction. In the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, they will give the allegory of this world as a tree. But that tree, the roots are upwards. Urdha mula, adha shakha. Why? The root is our spiritual dimension of our existence. That's why it is above. And all the branches of this worldly existence are below. And we are here holding to the tree, the branches of this tree. Here, in this example, instead of gravitation, what is actually working always is the grace of the divine. It is always working upwards to take us to the root of our existence. But why we don't realize it? Because we are holding onto this branch, clasping to this branch of samsara. The moment that resignation comes, oh God, oh Lord, I am yours. There is no support apart from you. This idea even we find when the first batch of sannyasins were ordained the vow of sannyasa. After Swami Vivekananda's return from the West, the Belur Math has just formed, and we find a throng of young enthusiasts hearing to the clarion call of Swami Vivekananda, left their hearth and home and came and joined the order. They're the first batch of these monks. And after the sannyasa, not after the sannyasa, sorry, before the sannyasa, that there's reminiscences that one of them came to Swami Vivekananda and requested him, please ordain me into the life of this monasticism. And what Swami Vivekananda told was very interesting, that it's something very difficult. Whatever Guru says, you have to follow it without questioning. Can you do that? He said, yes, I can. And then the next question, Swamiji told, if I just say you that to leave your hold from the top of the tree and just say, oh God, there is no support apart from you, and jump. Can you do that? He said, yes. The idea is same. It's all doesn't literally mean that just jumping from the tree. What actually it means? That in this life we are holding on to so many things. Our family, our wealth, our position in life. And the biggest hold is on this body itself. That we find that even in any monastic organization, we will find that it happens. That there is no family, nothing, but at last he has become so careworn, always thinking of his body, nothing else. Because couldn't give his mind to God. It has to stay somewhere. it is holding onto that. So that's the grasp. It's very difficult to get rid of. But if somehow through all our spiritual endeavors at last we find that nothing, there is no support apart from God and can leave the hold, know for certain that urdhamala adashaka, that you will be taken from these lower branches which you are grasping by the grace to become one with the divine. Just the way when I am holding to the branch of a tree, I don't fall. But the moment I release, no effort is required. The gravitation pulls me down. So here also the same thing happens. The moment you can release the hold, the grace is there, always is there. You immediately become one with the spiritual dimension of your existence. So Sharanagati, Sharanagati. So sometimes we say that I am taking refuge, but it is a word of mouth. Unless it comes from the depth of your being as a real feeling, that we are yet far away from our spiritual unfoldment. It is impossible. So here also we find that the moment Arjuna says, "Oh Lord, I am taking refuge in you. There is no one else who can dispel this doubt." And then only Krishna is coming with that assurance. Don't be afraid. There is as such no destruction for such a person who has resorted to the path of spirituality. And then that assurance comes in the 40th verse, where Bhagavan says, Partha naiveha namutra vinashastasya vidyate nahi kalyana krit kaschit durgating tata gacchati. So now that Krishna, from the spiritual dimension of existence, is addressing Arjuna as the son. Just like the son, he is assuring, just like the father, he is assuring the son. What? Know it for certain. There is no destruction for one who is kalyana krit. Krit is verb. What means? The one who has resorted to a particular type of action. What is that action? Goodness, kalyana. What that goodness speaks of? Or endeavor to get established in the spiritual dimension of my existence. The moment you have taken resolution, that itself is something which has been praised by the Lord as something worthwhile in life. Just take the resolution, start your journey. That in the second chapter we read that Salpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Practice a little, start your journey. It will save you from the great danger of this process of transmigration. And that will be spoken of by Bhagavan here in the succeeding verses. That na and Partha, O Partha, naiveha, na iva iha. Iha means here. Know it for certain in this life, or amutra, na amutra, na amutra, even hereafter. There is any destruction for one who has resorted to the spiritual journey. There is no destruction for him. Nahi kalyana krit kaschit durgatim. He never meets any evil, any destruction. That one who has resorted to this path of goodness. So that's the assurance Bhagavan gives, and then he will specify that what's his course of journey, that what's his destiny, the one who has resorted to the spiritual life but at the same time couldn't reach the goal in this very life. Now there are gradations, that some, just in a common example, that most probably you have 40 in olden days, that out of 100 in our school days, 40% was the pass marks. So now if you get 35 plus, they used to give grace and promote you. But if you get 30, so you have failed. But if you get 20, still you have failed. But there is a difference, that all are not same. Some have got 30, some have 20. So that shows the perfection still you need. That if you are extremely poor or you are poor, yes, you have failed. But some may be just about to reach the goal, couldn't reach. Some are lagging quite behind. So as per gradations, we will find here Bhagavan is also speaking of various destinies. Mainly 2 destinies has been spoken of here, as per the gradation of your progress in spiritual journey. If you have not reached the goal, but you have proceeded to a certain extent. So that what's been told in the 41st verse, this prapyam punya kritam lokan ushitva shashvati sama shuchinam srimatang gehe yoga bhrashto abhijayate. Prapya punya kritam lokan. So after the death, for such a person, they attain the higher celestial existence. Punya kritam. There's all the lokas which are attained by punya, by all good deeds. Punya krita. That all the punya, all the good deeds which you have done, which has been done by you. Krita. Krita means to do. This kri dhatu speaks of action. So religion is something which is not a noun, it is a verb. You have to do something. So all those goodness which you have practiced in your life, though it has not taken you to the perfection, but you have progressed to a certain extent, then what's your destiny? You will attain all those celestial existence, celestial bodies, higher celestial bodies, because of all the meritorious deeds you have done in this life. All those meritorious deeds in the form of your endeavor for spiritual perfection. So that's the thing will enable you to attain all those lokas. And you will stay there for Shashvati Sama, for ages. You will be staying there, Shashvati Sama. And then, as you haven't been liberated, the ego is still there. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say that as long as the ego is there, know it for certain, again the tree will come out. He used to give a nice example that so there are some old dilapidated buildings in the olden days you will find, and lots of this creepers and trees, the Ashwatha trees has came out from the brick wall. So if you go and cut the tree, the roots are so deep rooted, again within a few days you will find the shoots are coming out. So ego is something like that. Unless it is uprooted, again and again you will find the so-called material plane of existence is manifesting. So as the ego has not been annihilated, that's the only sign of liberation. What? That when shall I be free? When I cease to be. Till the annihilation of ego, there is always that chance of taking birth again and again. As Sri Ramakrishna gives that example, a seed was lying on the terrace for maybe years together. And one day a strong wind came and the seed was blown and it fell on the ground and it sprouted. So though it was there for many, many years, as it never had the favorable circumstances for sprouting, the life was there in the potential form. The moment the wind came, it was blown to the ground, it got the favorable circumstances for sprouting and immediately it sprouts. So that's what that ego is like, that potential form, the seed form. Unless it is totally uprooted, again we have to take birth. So that's what, though I enjoy in the celestial plane, the bliss of the celestial existence, I have to come down. In the last class we were discussing this verse. But when we told that that the enjoyments which we have a tendency for can be enjoyed in those higher planes of existence, we may immediately equate this plane of existence with that plane of existence by thinking, oh, that higher plane of existence is all the pleasures of this life minus the suffering. But actually it is not speaking so. That higher plane of existence, what it is speaking of? Let us try to understand even in this life that what's happiness, the nature of happiness is. Now we can find two types of happiness in this life. One is extremely short-lived. All the sensate pleasures are very short-lived. Just your attempt to get any sensate pleasure, just any delicacy you want, you enjoy, any food. From the morning you are preparing. Now in the lunchtime you sit for having your food. You just sit together. It takes about half an hour. And then you are satiated. The most delicate, the delicacy which you like most, how long you can enjoy? Maybe one serve, second serve, and then you are satiated. You cannot continue. So all your happiness was just for that half an hour. It's gone. And again it will come back. Again you have to endeavor, and just for a short time you enjoy. So this is the nature of all the worldly pleasures. Does it really give us happiness? It is so short-lived. It takes us to the climax and then it evaporates. There's another type of happiness that is qualitatively much, much better. In the modern psychology, they call it entering into a state of flow. That needs some culture, sanskriti. So all this short-lived happiness happens because of vikriti. This nature is prakriti. Prakriti leads to vikriti. What's the nature? That what I do again and again, that creates as if a path in my mind, and I get obsessed to do that. This is a prakriti, this is a nature. And this leads to all sorts of vikriti. Vikriti means distortion, perversion. That our too much indulgence in the sense world is the vikriti. But it gives us no happiness. You'll find that we are as almost a slave of it. With all our endeavor we get it, it's gone. It can never give us permanent happiness. But the same mind, we can culture it, sanskara. This prakriti leads to vikriti, that's the default mode, but we can design. We as a human being, we have the capacity to design it so that instead of vikriti, it leads to sanskriti. Cultured way of living. What's that? Your endeavor for getting established in the spiritual dimension of existence. You have started meditating, constantly thinking of the God, of the divine, or the spiritual dimension of existence. Constantly you're doing that. This endeavor also, as per the prakriti, will lead to the formation of a path in your mind. Once the path is formed, again as per the prakriti, you will start loving to do that. Meditation becomes spontaneous. And once it becomes spontaneous, that's what has been mentioned by Bhagavan. Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Now you're addicted. Now this love for your meditation, this will take you to the highest rung of spiritual evolution at last. Just take an example of a drug addict. He knows that the drug is the cause of his distraction. But still it cannot leave it. Why? Because what I resolve with my conscious mind doesn't have any, is not the thing which can integrate my personality. I can resolve in my mind, but what the tendencies which I have developed by repeated action, that has the real force. A drug addict knows the drug is killing him, but still it cannot leave drug because it has developed an addiction. Similarly, once you develop love for meditation, it is also an addiction. The entire world may come and explain you, it's all bogus, it's all nonsense, it's of no use. You may feel convinced, yes, most probably it's of no use. But after some time you'll find that you have developed love and addiction. Even your mind is saying this is of no use, you again and again go back to your practice. What happens then? As in the flow psychology they say very nicely, that for any endeavor which needs culture, say suppose you have started learning musical instrument, playing sitar. At the beginning you don't find any joy out of it because your skills are yet to meet the challenge. That I want to become perfect in this musical instrument. I'm yet to reach that. So I'm struggling. There's no joy in it. But with your resolution, if you continue, a time comes when your skills meet the challenge. And now you enter into a deep concentration. You're enjoying it, you're in a flow. you are enjoying, you're just playing, and how much that concentration, that flow gives a tremendous joy. What that joy comes from? Because all the distraction starts falling off. As the mind gets focused in what you are doing, your skills have met the challenge, so you have entered into a state of flow. How? Because you're focused. Now you don't have to really consciously think of perfection. The perfection has become a spontaneity. So now you're absorbed in your music. You're playing and you're absorbed. That focus enables you to get rid of all distractions. All the external distractions falls off. That sometimes we say that I cannot concentrate because others are all making noise. But it's actually just the opposite. As I am not concentrated, so the noise is disturbing me. If I am focused, the noise I cannot hear. It happens when I am watching a cricket match or any match with full attention. Someone calls, I don't hear. The sound has entered my ears, but my mind has not registered because it is focused to something else. So here also the same thing happens. All the distraction starts falling off. Even your bodily feeling starts falling off. You forget hunger, thirst. Go on, you will find that those who are passionate in this music, for hours together, they're doing it. Forgotten everything. Now you find this is giving you a happiness which is much more prolonged. It helps you to forget even your bodily feelings. That's why this Janaka is called Videha. That though in his body, he is not aware of his body. So focused in his object of meditation. So focused on the self. The joy which comes out of it, he is absorbed in that. Everything has fallen off. So this speaks of that higher type of happiness, which comes through Sanskriti. It's that you have cultured it. It's no more Vikriti. It is you're taking the same help of the same nature of the mind, but you have designed it in such a way that it gives a bliss which as such has no limitation. You can prolong it for a long time. So that's the state you have entered. Though you have not entered into that you have not reached the state where ego has fallen off. So when I'm enjoying music, who is enjoying? I am enjoying. Still that I is there. But that I has been refined from all other distractions, all the sensate pleasures of life, all the so-called bodily feelings. It is now just tagged to that some sublime music. And if you are a spiritual aspirant, your mind is tagged to your concentration, meditation. You are meditating on the God, or on yourself. Everything has fallen off. Even if you are saying, I am not the self, the paradox is, it is the mind who is saying, I am not the self. So still you are with your mind, still you are with your ego, but you have reached a state where you can continue in that state for long. So what happens when such a person dies? You know what gravitates us again down to this physical plane of existence? What gravitates us is why we again take rebirth. The stronger is our attachment to the world, the quicker we come back to this world of transmigration. Why? Because our hunger, our thirst, our need to procreate, all these things gravitates us down to the physical plane. Because without a physical body, I cannot satiate my hunger, I cannot satiate my thirst, I cannot satiate the need to procreate. I need a physical body. They are the thing which gravitates me down. But if you have got habituated in the meditation of God, of something divine, but at the same time, you have not reached the state where ego has obliterated. I am, God is, and this connection is there. So ego is still there. But you have reached a state where you can stay there, prolonged meditation, and you enjoy. So when you die, these factors, your hunger, thirst, need to procreate, they are no more there to drag us down again to the physical plane of existence. Sukshma Sharira, the subtle body constitutes of the mind, is constituted, mind is the subtle Sharira. So in your mind, you're contemplating. So there is no need for coming down to the gross body. In your mind, now you can continue to contemplate for ages together. And that's how you will find in our scriptures. When they speak of celestial existence being, they say there are various levels. Maha, Jana, Tapa, Satya. So all this, not only Swarga is the Pitriloka. Here when Bhagavan is saying that you reach to the celestial plane, know it for certain it is not the mere Pitriloka. Pitriloka, anyone who have not even resorted to spiritual journey but have done some meritorious act, they can go there. But your meditation has enabled you to go to this higher planes of existence where your enjoyment has been much more refined. You can stay only in your mind contemplating. That speaks of ages, as Shashwating Sama, you're staying there. But still, as we were saying, ego is something which is like the root. It will, at last, so again sprout again. So same thing happens here. So like a musician who is playing the music, maybe he may have forgotten hunger for hours together. But at last, he has been able to delay his gratification. But he cannot totally annihilate his gratification. Because still, after all, he is clinging to the body-mind complex. So though for an ordinary person, he will be immediately resorting to his hunger, he can delay it, but he cannot totally uproot it. So that's the thing which happens here. So you're enjoying there in that bliss, but at last, maybe for ages together, it do break. And again, that small part of the ego, that is sufficient to again to bring you down to this worldly plane of existence. But again, very interesting thing. Somehow, my worldly desires have been attenuated, reduced because of my sublime way of living. So though I come down to this world, even in this world there is gradation of existence. You may take birth as an animal, you may take birth in a family which is extremely worldly, or a criminal, or extremely in some part of the world where always disturbance is going on. So there are so many gradations. So here Bhagavan says, though because of it you have to come down, know it for certain, because of your tendencies for the spiritual journey which you have grown, you will come down, gravitate down to a family which is appropriate for your tendencies to sprout again. So that's why when you're coming down, Shuchinang Srimatange. That's interesting. The family which is wealthy, because wealth is important. Why? As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Khali pete dharma hai na. If you are in dire poverty, just every time, every moment you have to think, what's my next meal? If you're in hunger, what is the chance for your spiritual evolution? So, that Swami Vivekananda used to say a very interesting thing, that when Swami Vivekananda was in the West, at that time already this idea of socialism was quite prevalent in the Western society. So someone asked Swamiji that, what's your idea of this socialism? Swamiji's reply was wonderful. I am a socialist. He immediately replied, I am a socialist. Why? And then the reason was very interesting. Because half a loaf is better than no loaf at all. So it's almost the same meaning of that Ramakrishna's Khali pete dharma hai na. There cannot be religion in an empty stomach. That as a human being, first thing I need is to sustain myself. So socialism ensures that material well-being is ensured. There won't be exploitation. Wealth will be equally distributed among all. Ideologically we are speaking, whether that in the world has never yet realized, haven't yet realized that. Sometimes that's why we jokingly used to say that Marx used to say as a communist that religion is the opium of the masses. But in 100 years of the so-called all the communist movement, at last you will find it has not materialized. All the communist movement at last has ended up in dictators. All the big dictators you will find in the world. It's not because that ism is wrong. Because as a human being, we have the capacity to turn any ism into some devilish existence. We have that capacity. That ism, if you take the ideal itself, is perfect. But as a human being, we do have the capacity. The one who is supposed to distribute the wealth equally to the world has at last become dictator. He has collected the wealth, but he has not distributed. And he has become the dictator. That has happened. And that's why we used to say that at last we find that the so-called communism is the opium of the intellectuals. the few intellectuals sitting and dreaming of an ideal world, it has just become an opium for them. It's an opium. It has not been realized. But still they think it will be happens, because as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, very nicely, this world is a dog's curly tail. Those who don't realize that, they all become fanatics. And this fanatism is like an opium. So the intellectuals with that opium are still hanging to that idea. It will be possible. It is possible. Still they're trying. It's never possible. So I'm not going to that discussion. What's this idea is? This world will have gradations. And you will be gravitated to a family where already that material sustenance has been taken care of. Because if it is a poverty-stricken family, you cannot practice religion. You have already developed a tendency for meditation, for contemplation, for a higher way of living, the sublime way of living. So your basic, this necessity should be taken care of. You'll find everywhere. Even when Naren was really thinking of, that after his father's death, that how to sustain the family, what will happen to his mother, what will happen to his father. And he went to Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna told, let's go to mother and pray. 3 times he goes and he can never ask for wealth. He just asks for viveka, vairagya, discrimination, dispassion. At last he comes back to Ramakrishna and says, it must be your trick. Somehow I find. But after all, Naren was evolved. There was no need for Ramakrishna to trick him. Whenever he goes to the presence of the divine, he gets overwhelmed. And then at last, what Ramakrishna is assuring Naren is very interesting. That mota bhat kapore raha hobe na. He's not saying that your mother will be very wealthy. That just for your sustenance, whatever you need, you will get it. That's the blessing at last Ramakrishna is giving. Even in our order, we will find, very interesting, when Holy Mother, in the very first phase of our organization, when Ramakrishna passed away, the direct disciples were just wandering about, just begging for their food and just leading a very intense spiritual life. Holy Mother knew that the next generations who will come, they cannot live that extent life. They are the yogis. That will be spoken of in the next verse. There are some yogis who can really forget about their body and they have highly evolved. But Mother knew in the name of Ramakrishna, the next generation who will come, they cannot live this intense spiritual life as these direct disciples are leading. But they will, after all, renounce their hearth and home and come. So they should have a place to stay. They should have the this resource to the food. And we find that Holy Mother went to Gaya, and there he found that the monasteries, Buddhist monasteries, were wealthy enough, where the monks are meditating, but they need not have to think of their own sustenance. There's a nice provision for bhiksha, saying that Holy Mother is praying the same thing, that whoever lives their hearth and home in your name, please see that they have the bare sustenance. Again, this very interesting thing. She's not asking for wealth. At least they can sustain themselves. So that's very important. That's the idea of Srimatangehe. That there should be the wealth for sustaining themselves. As Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel, this is very interesting. In the Gospel, he's saying that with wealth, what happens? That in টাকায় মাথার উপরে ছাদ হয়, অন্ন হয়, means just you get your food, shelter. After that, what will you do with the money? That excess money is of no use. But however you may earn, at last you know that the delicacies which you have to you have to pay a lot to buy. You have money, but you cannot buy, because after all you will get diabetes and all these things. At last, your food will be something very, very meager, which even with that half your salary you can get it. So that's why even in the modern psychology they say that wealth to certain extent do bring happiness to a certain level. After that, it becomes a nuisance. It becomes a nuisance. Because why it becomes a nuisance? Because your choice increases. From the morning to evening, you will be nowadays in your mobile, in so many shopping apps, you will be just constantly thinking, oh, I need this, I need that, and you will go on shopping so many things, and it will be disturbing you constantly. There's a very nice research. When during the Vietnam War, when the American army, they were, because of these blasts, everywhere they were just, planting the mine, this mine, these bombs were planted on the ground, so the American army were not aware. So now and then it will blast, and there used to be severe injury. That's how the Vietnam actually, with this guerrilla warfare, could win over America. So a lot of American, this army soldier was getting injured. They were brought back to the mainland. They were in hospital, and now a research was done that they found that they are very restless. Naturally, they have been injured. So what's their mental condition is. So on that, some research work was done, and they were very much surprised that those who are very badly injured, most probably have lost both the legs or both the hands, they are quite at peace with themselves. Those who are very mildly injured, they are extremely agitated, restless, lot of psychological issues. So they were surprised, how is it? And then they found a wonderful thing, that those who have been severely damaged, where both the limbs have gone, had to be amputated. So they know in those days, that mobile hasn't come. This mobile phone was not there. So it was all the STD, ISD booths were there on the roadsides. And even in America, the government, for those all those soldiers, heavily injured soldiers, they used to allot those booths. That, okay, we are giving you this one booth. You come in wheelchair every day. Whatever you earn from that, that's your earning. So for them, there was no option. They know I have lost my limbs. Government is going to give me that. With that, I am going to sustain myself. There is no other option. But those who are not severely injured, they know they will be again quite okay after maybe a month or two. Now they are not going back for the war again, army. They have to lead a civilian life. Now all those questions. When in America, that the families are very volatile. I will be united with my family? Will I get the job I aspire for? So thousands of questions were in their mind, and that was which were the cause of the turmoil. So now you will understand with wealth what happens. When the wealth is something more than you need, all the disturbance comes. So many options. So that's why Srimatang means just the bare sustenance. That is Bhagavan is assuring. And Shuchitang. You will be born in a family which is Shuchi, which is pure. Who is pure? Purity is not in the body, it is in the mind again. The one who can keep his mind pure. Who can keep his mind pure? The family which is already cultured, Sanskriti. They have a trend towards spirituality and well-off. So you will be born in such a family. Just it makes sense, isn't it? It makes sense. So how nicely Bhagavan is saying that prapya punya kritang lokan ushitva shashvati sama. To enjoy in that bliss of contemplation in the higher world. But as you are not fully liberated, your ego is still there. It is that ego. Swami Vivekananda used to say a very interesting thing, that golden chain is also a chain. That it also can bind you. That someone has been bound in the jail with the iron chain. And then he says it's really unbearable. And he says, okay. This iron chain is hurting you. Okay, let me open the iron chain and just bind you with a golden chain. Is he going to get any pleasure? It's the same suffering. So the golden chain is also a chain. So unless our ego has been totally obliterated, our enjoyment has refined. I find joy in contemplation. But still, for that ego has to be there. It is I who am meditating. Even when I am saying I am Brahman, who is saying? The mind is saying. You are saying I am not the mind, but who is saying I am not the mind? It is the mind is saying. So you have not gone beyond mind. That's in Yoga Sutra they say the ultimate spiritual evolution comes to para vairagya. Supreme renunciation, where even you are fed up with your ego, let that fall off. Swami Vivekananda, these words are very, very strong, but it's very perfect. That what's the use of suicide? It just kills your physical body. Your mind is still there. Again, you will take birth. Maybe in much more horrible conditions, in much more unfavorable conditions. Why in much more unfavorable conditions? Because your hunger was not satiated. Suppose you have sat down for food, and Certainly you had some angry conversations with someone, you threw the plate, went off. Your hunger is not full. So now when you're still, the hunger is there, you won't have the option for what to eat and what not to eat. Now you will just simply grab whatever you get. Same thing happens when one commits physical suicide. Lot of his sanskar, his so many things were yet to be fulfilled, he didn't fulfill. Suddenly, as a deliberate act, he ended up his life. Now his urges are very strong. The question of choosing his birth is no more there. Wherever he gets chance, just like a hungry person, is he going to select his food? No, whatever he gets, he will take. Similarly, he recourse to whatever life is possible. And that can lead to really a very, very degraded life. It can lead to very degraded life because you never had that equanimity to choose. You were so hungry. So, but Sri Swamiji is saying a very interesting thing. That what spirituality is, that is also a suicide. But it is not the suicide of the body. It is the suicide of the mind. You kill your mind. The mind which is enjoying that pleasure, that also is gone. To go beyond that. That we used to say, there is this very interesting thing that, that as a small child, when we used to play, I still remember, there was a small girl when we were playing together, and she was very easily scared. Whenever we will make some face, she will get scared, she'll start crying, and she will run. And that used to give us fun. Wow. So every day we used to do the same thing. We will make some face, she will run. And one day we found that while running, she was mumbling something. And we were a bit curious what she is mumbling. So we also followed her, and at last went to her mother. But the mother was waiting. She went, and we asked her mother that what she is saying. And the mother told interesting thing. That she told that as she gets so easily scared, yesterday I was explaining her that when anyone scares you, just say yourself what to fear, like that. So now today, the next day when we scared her, that's what she was saying, and she was running. So what she was saying hasn't registered his mind, isn't it? So she was saying something that is called ativada. She was saying something which she hasn't realized. She was speaking beyond his realization, ativada. So when we are enjoying the bliss of meditation, that I am not the body, not the mind, not the senses, I am the self. Who is doing that? It is the mind. So our condition is just like that small girl running without saying what to fear is running. He's scared. So that's the condition in which we are still holding to the ego. So that's why again we have to come down, but we come down because of our sanskara in a family which is Shuchi, the Shuchinang and Srimatang, and thus get the favorable circumstances to pursue our journey. So that's how Bhagavan is assuring us. But those who have developed who has died with Paravairagya, that has developed, that have to go even beyond this. I don't want any type of this physical existence in whatever the level of joy is. I just want to get one with the divine. I want to just go beyond this limited ego, ahankara, and to be one with the divine plane of my existence, but couldn't reach there. So the tremendous aspiration is there. For him, there is no need to have that this eternal, as if a relatively eternal life in the higher planes of existence and again coming down. He immediately will be born again because of that intense desire to get liberated. Again he will be born, but in a family of yogi. The yogi's family, where the family itself is highly spiritually evolved. They need not be having wealth, because as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, very interesting thing, that if you have just one peg of alcohol, then you can maintain both the sides. You can still socialize and still enjoy the, that your intoxication to a certain extent you're enjoying, and at the same time you're socializing. So you have taken one peg, but if you have taken 4-5 pegs or little more, can you really keep balance in both the world? You're totally gone now, totally intoxicated. So these yogis' family is like that. They have drank a bit more. So now there is no question of balancing between this world. So they are totally absorbed. So they even need not be wealthy, but that absorption is so much that it speaks of a family where that intense spiritual yearning is there. There he is born, and that takes him to the liberation immediately. Sri Ramakrishna speaks of Homer bird. These yogis are like that Homer bird. Homer bird, it's a mythological bird. There is no such bird called Homer bird, but in the gospel we find Sri Ramakrishna says that there is a bird called Homer bird. They fly very high up in the sky. And in the sky, while they're flying very high, they will lay their eggs. And the egg starts falling. While falling, it's so high that while falling, it hatches. And the fledgling finds that if it falls to the ground, it will be smashed. So, before it falls to the ground, so it has hatched on the air, this fledgling is now about to fall on the ground, that before falling in the ground, it's so scared, I'm going to die. It takes its flight to reach its mother. So that speaks of that intense aspiration. From the very birth they know that I have to get, there's no more spoiling of life, wasting of life. They have been born in a family of these yogis, which will take him to that ultimate realization. As we were speaking of the gradation, because they have almost reached the goal. They have already attained that supreme renunciation, para vairagya, from where the journey was just a little remaining. So they are born in the family of yogis, but such birth is rare indeed. That's what Bhagavan will be speaking of in the next verse. So what he's saying? Athava yoginam eva. 42nd verse. Athava yoginam eva kule bhavati dhimatam etadhi durlabha tarang loke janma yadidrasham. So, or he is born. If he still is far more evolved. He is born in the family of yogis directly. Did not have to go through all the celestial worlds. He is born in the family of the yogis, which is rich in wisdom. Dhimatam. They are very rich in wisdom. And then, for such a birth, it is very hard to attain. We had to get such an aspiration. And we will find in Mahabharata, in our Bhagavatam, the example of Shukadeva is of such a birth. That in the mother's womb, he had such a tremendous dispassion that he was not willing to take birth. And at last, when he had to take birth, he was born as a youth, as a young boy. But in the moment he took birth, he was fully aware that yes, I have to renounce this world and get liberated. So he was so tremendously eager for liberation, yearning. The moment he took birth, he started running. As a young boy, fully naked, nude, he was running. And he was born in the family of that yogi, Vyasa, who's in the Guru Purnima, his birthday which we celebrate, that he is the guru of the gurus. What a stupendous work he has done to establish this Sanatana Dharma. That's why he's considered as the foremost guru. So he is the yogi of the yogis. As his child, he was born with this tremendous dispassion. He is running as a youth immediately after his birth. And his Vyasa, after all, his father, is full of love for the child. He's running after him, saying, oh son, where are you going? And Shuka is in no way have any any sense of attachment for the family. He sees the family as something, a place, a dreadful place. He's running. And after some certain distance, when Vyasa was following Shukadeva, he saw Shukadeva passing a reservoir where all the nymphs, the celestial nymphs, were bathing. Now, when they were in the bathing, naturally they were all disrobed, they have no clothes. And now Shukadeva passed them, they were not bothered. And when Vyasa, this old man, he is highly evolved spiritually, and he's an old man. When he was about to cross, all these nymphs who were having dipped in that reservoir, immediately they were so embarrassed, they felt shy, they were just covering themselves. And Vyasa was very much surprised. The son, who is a young boy, is a youth, he ran naked in front of all these nymphs, and they had no as such embarrassment. And I'm an old man. And I'm a so-called, everyone knows that I'm a saintly person. What makes them feel so embarrassed? And he asks them, out of surprise, he asks all these nymphs, that how come seeing me? We are not embarrassed by seeing my son, but you are embracing me. How come? And in one word they all replied, he is a youth, but he doesn't know he is a young. He has no sense of body. Just in front of a small child, do we feel ashamed? We don't feel ashamed, because we know the child has no sense of body. All the shame comes when we know the other person has sense of body. If he has just in front of the child, we don't feel ashamed. So like that, he's looking like a young boy, but he's just like a small boy, no sense of body. But you, after all, though you are a sage, still you know the distinction of man and woman. You have written all these scriptures where you are so poetic about describing the beauty. So you have that sense. So seeing you, we feel embarrassed. And now Vyasa felt, after whom I am running? He's totally detached from this world. After whom I am running? How can I have this maya for him? Infatuation. And now he stopped running after him. He went back. The stories are wonderful. And Shukadeva, no one knew where he is. He went deep into the forest, absorbed in samadhi, deep samadhi. How the Bhagavata was preached to the humankind. It is because of this Yogi Shrestha Shukadeva. How nicely then, when Bhagavatam was composed by Vyasa, now he found a very interesting thing, that we are a bit deviating, but this story is very interesting. Very interesting, that Vyasa found that the life of Krishna is wonderful. Why it is wonderful? See, God comes down as a human being, behaves like human being, but if you see his life, as you feel that is a human being, naturally you get drawn towards that. You find all the inhuman aspects in it. That though he is human, but he cannot be human. How? That all the, especially this Rasha Leela which has been described in the Bhagavatam, where Krishna is playing with the gopis. But one thing is very interesting. With so many gopis, he is there in the Rasa Leela, but there is no sense of sensate pleasure. It's a love very sublime. But when an ordinary person reads it, their mind will be polluted because they cannot relate to that. Because as Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that if you eat radish, you belch the smell of radish. That's the world is. That we have all written radish. How can we relate to that? We belch radish, the smell of radish comes, and I think the world has the smell of radish. Mulo khe mulu dhekuttola. So Vyasa understood that the people won't understand the scripture, the real intent of the scripture, that to stay in this world just like a lotus leaf. It's in water, but the water cannot in any way drench it, touch it. It falls off. So that's the life of Krishna. Tremendous dispassion, though he's staying in the world of action. But unless someone who is the sannyasi of the sannyasi, the yogi srashta, if he teaches it, then people will realize its real meaning. That such a dispassionate person who has no sense of body, who is always in deep spiritual communion, he is preaching this Bhagavatam, then the questions will come, that it has some higher purpose. So Vyasa felt that if it at all has to be preached, then this thought of his son came. Not because of that infatuation as a son. Now that higher purpose, to preach this Bhagavatam, I need my son back. Very interesting, how to get his son back? Then he will be teaching this cowherd boys a verse. Go and repeat this verse to him. He will come down from the meditation, and when he asks that who has composed this verse, don't say my name, because hearing my name again he will run away. Just say, do you want to meet? You want to meet that person? And he will of course say yes, because that verse speaks of the beauty of the divine, contemplating on which he transcended. So this thought will bring him back. And when he will be really yearning to know who is it, bring him to me. That's how he was brought back, and the Bhagavatam was preached. Why we are just referring to this story? To give an inclination of the fact that what is meant by that athava yoginam eva kule bhavati dhimata. Such a person like Shukadeva, how many you get like that? And sometimes it's very difficult to get such a family. But kula can also mean spiritual tradition, parampara. You are born in a family, but you know it's not your place. Somehow your yearning will take you to a spiritual tradition where your spiritual aspiration will be fulfilled. That's the example of Padmapada. You have heard the story of Padmapada? He was, just the father and mother thought he is a lunatic person. His father was Prabhakara from the Karnataka's Kallur village. His Prabhakara, a Brahmin family. His son, this Padmapada, was born. He appeared to be abnormal. And when Shankaracharya was passing through, Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya was passing through that village, Prabhakara went and told, my son is mad, is mentally challenged. And when he saw Shankaracharya, immediately he started reciting verses of Advaitic Vedanta. And Shankaracharya took him. The world thought him to be mad. They never realized. He was just waiting for that. So here the kula is the kula of the parampara, of that Shankaracharya's tradition. Though he was born in a family, but that's not the kula. This is not the biological family. The spiritual family, to that he belongs. That after birth, he is immediately drawn to that where his life's purpose, aspiration was fulfilled. He got liberation, coming in association with Shankaracharya. He is one of the four, these acharyas, that whom Shankaracharya has ordained as the mathadhish of the four mathas which he have established. Of them, this Padmapada is also one of them. So, Hastamalaka is also one of them. This Hastamalaka, that's how was taken into the kula of this Shankaracharya's tradition. So they are the one who has this tremendous aspiration. They have to liberate that. As Ramakrishna says, that if a thief is sitting in a room, he knows the next room has a treasure. But it is locked. What will be his mental condition? He will be restless. How I can manage to break the lock and get it, isn't it? He will be extremely restless. And we say we are spiritual, I believe in God. And Ramakrishna says, how come? If you is a thief, when he just sits near a house which is full of treasure, cannot be at peace. Constantly he is agitated, thinking, how can I break the lock? And you say you believe in the treasure, which is in the core of your being, and you are leading a life where it's just an ordinary life. How can you really say that you have that belief that the treasure is there in the core of your being? These yoginas, shrashtas, they have reached that state. They know, just for little I have missed it. It was a near miss. They are born in that family directly to take them to that ultimate liberation. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Few more verses are there, which will be just discussing the same idea till the 45th verse. And this chapter has 47 verses. So we will try to cover up maybe in another 1 or 2 classes the remaining verses which are remaining for the 6th chapter before we proceed to the next chapter. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskar.